It's good to have something to look forward to, isn't it? Something to anticipate. This week we booked a holiday in June for myself and Nicola to go to our favorite place in France. And the greatest thing about a holiday, to be honest, even better than being there, is anticipating it, yes? Planning it, all the things that you're going to do and everything like that. And so, you know, today I want to talk to you. I had called it something different, but I've changed it. I want to talk to you about living in the anticipation of eternity. We don't know when it's going to happen, but yes, it's going to happen. And so how we live our lives today, and that's what I want to talk to you about, and that's what Jesus is talking to about his disciples where we reach this place in the journey. We have, if you want to catch up with what's gone on in the past, we've got a set of devotions that we're sending out on email. You can register that. There should be an address on the screen. But if you've missed any of the other ones, go to our website and you can pick them up and have a look. But in our journey, Jesus is in his last week of ministry on this earth, and it's drawing to a close. Crowds are leaving the temple on that Tuesday that he'd been speaking to all the religious elite, and they were getting pretty mad at him and wanted to do away with him, so much so that when they left the temple that evening, they went to the high priest's house and they hatched a plan to kill Jesus. They weren't sure when that was going to happen because they didn't want to upset all the crowds that were around in Jerusalem at that time, and Jesus had some sort of credence with the crowds. But they had decided what they were going to do. And as Jesus walked out of the temple that evening, or later on in the day at least, his disciples were walking with him. And in chapter 24, it records that the disciples said, "Wow, look at this place. Look at this temple. Isn't it incredible?" And they were wowed by all the architecture and everything that was around about them. It says, verses 1 and 2, it says, "You're not impressed by all the sheer size, are you? The truth of the matter is that there is not a stone in that building that is going to end up not going to end up in a pile of rubble." He says, don't get impressed by all this stuff around you. It's going to end up getting knocked down. Have you ever gone somewhere or been somewhere that took your breath away? You know, I mean, you go on holiday, you go sightseeing, and you see, so you think, that's just, how could mankind even do that? I had that sort of experience, probably I was about 15, I think, and I went on my first overseas holiday with my mom and dad. It's a big thing because I know we go abroad all the time now, don't we? But nobody went abroad from England at that time, or Scotland, I don't think. But we went abroad for our holiday, and we went to Italy, and we were sort of place called Cattolica, and I was excited. I wanted to see what was happening, but I discovered that there was a trip to Rome. It was a 2-day trip because it was on a bus and you had to stay overnight, and I was looking forward, and my mom and dad didn't want to go. I was like, "What? You want to sit on the beach?" When I was like, "Rome to go and see?" And so we arranged, or they arranged, some other people from the hotel were going, and I jumped on the bus and went off with them for my 2-day trip to Rome. You know, it assaulted anybody ever been there? It is just the most incredible place, isn't it? Everywhere you go is history. The Colosseum, even though it's sort of destroyed mostly, or the Forum, I mean, it is just mind-blowing. Then you arrive at the Vatican and you look at all the incredible works of art as you walk in, and the statues. Then you go to the Sistine Chapel. I mean, it is just incredible. I had probably the two best, alone, by yourself, 15-year-old, in Rome. Like, what could be better? And that's what these disciples are saying. Hey, Israel is so great. Our nation is so brilliant. Our people are builders, and we've built this incredible thing. And Jesus is saying, hey, don't get impressed by this. It's not going to be too long before this whole thing is going to be destroyed. And so they leave Jerusalem, they're heading towards Bethany, they pause on the Mount of Olives, and on the Mount of Olives they're looking back through the Kidron Valley, and in the distance you can see Jerusalem, and towering above the walls was the temple. And his disciples come to Jesus, and what he said must have been, you know when people say something to you and you're trying to compute it? And I can imagine walking along the road to Bethany, they're trying to compute, what you want about, Jesus? And so he's sitting down, they're having a little snack as a break on the way back, and they said to him, hey, tell us, Matthew 24:3, tell us when these things are going to happen, and what will be the sign of your coming that the time is up. Now, just to help you, in the apostles' mind at that time, these 2-3 questions that Jesus asked were all tied up together. They weren't all separate. You with me? So when's the temple going to get destroyed? What's a sign of your coming? And when's time up? It was really one question, because in their mind, if the temple was going, if he's the Messiah and the temple's going to get destroyed, that was going to be the end. You with me? Now, with hindsight, when we look back, we realize that Jesus is answering the 2 or 3 questions in the following chapter, because we know that the temple and Jerusalem was destroyed in AD 70. The Roman army came in and just completely destroyed it. The temple was... but also we know that the end of the age hasn't happened yet, yes? That's still going to happen. So the second coming is still going to come. And in these few paragraphs in chapter 24, 25, I really want to encourage you. Go home today and read them again. And, you know, they are some of the most hotly contested verses in the Bible. There's more books written about this, more views on it, and how we understand the second coming of Jesus. Sometimes in the Bible it's called the arrival, sometimes it's called the revelation, sometimes it's called the day that things are going to happen. And how we interpret this few chapters here and how we interpret the book of Revelation is an interesting and challenging thought. And I'm not going to be able to do that today. I've got 25 minutes. I could keep you here for a few weeks talking about it. But I know that when I was growing up in church, there was lots more talk about the second coming than there is now. And I think we need to talk about the second coming, because Jesus talked about his second coming. And he told us some things that we should do in light of or in anticipation of his coming. And I think we miss something in the church when we don't talk about it. And it was so much so, you know, I mean, Arlene was given church news there in a minute. In my church growing up, if you were doing church news, you'd be saying, and we've got the expo coming up in a few weeks, DV. And you ever come in a church that said that? Just me? Oh, we must be brethren together. DV means except for divine intervention. We're going to have the expo on the 29th of March. Please sign up. DV. Just in case Jesus has got to come back. Or the other word we sometimes use was God willing. God willing. Was that the one that used down in England? It must have been a Scottish brethren thing that used DV. God willing. And you know, I mean, we had Sunday school in the afternoon. We didn't have Sunday school at the same time as when the adults were in church. We went to church, and then after that, we went to Sunday school in the afternoon. And when you went into the secondary school, you could no longer go to like Discovery Kids, and you had to go to something called a Bible class. And a Bible class, there was no music, there was no games, there was nothing. You just sat for an hour, and this guy taught you the Bible. It's like, whew. And believe it or not, when I was 13/14, the guy who was leading the Bible class, he decided that he would do a 12-month study on the book of Revelation. It was fascinating. Unbelievable. And the set view back then was, or probably still is today. So before I say this, okay, I know that some of you are going to disagree with me, but it's okay. Just come and see me afterwards and I'll help you. But the set view is that there is a secret rapture where suddenly all the Christians are going to go poof, and we're going to be gone. And everybody's going to be scratching their head thinking, where did they all go? And then there's going to be a period of great tribulation on the earth. We're going to be saved out of it. If you want to be saved during the tribulation, it is possible to be saved during the tribulation, but not by Jesus, but by martyrdom. You had to get your head cut off. I don't know where they found that one. Then, after that, Jesus is going to come back again. So he came back already once for his people, but now he's coming back again. And this time when he comes back, he's going to set up his kingdom in Jerusalem, and his throne is going to be in Jerusalem, and we're all going to go up to Jerusalem and offer sacrifices to Jesus. Wait a minute, wasn't Jesus the lamb slain once for all time? We never need sacrifices again, so why are we putting them back into action again? You with me? Yeah. Jesus is the lamb that took away the sin of the world. There doesn't need to be another sacrifice. You can see I don't agree. Anyway. And at the end of this 1,000 years, with Jesus reigning and ruling and everything incredible and lions lying down with lambs and everything is just incredible on the earth for a period of 1,000 years with Jesus in person, living in Jerusalem, reigning and ruling over everything, where everything is perfect. At the end of the 1,000 years, everybody's going to reject him. And there's going to, like, really? There's going to be a war between good and bad, and then we're going to have heaven and hell, yes? Have you heard that one before? Okay. I haven't got time to go into all of it today. In fact, we even had films. Anybody ever seen the film called Thief in the Night? A few of us, or Distant Thunder? And we used to bring our non-Christian friends to see these films to scare them into heaven. And I remember one chap, a friend of mine, his name was Alex, and I invited him to come and see this film, and anyway, he was scared of his wits. And the following week, I went out to play football with him. Now, it was just me and him. We were in a field up in Scotland, and the football field where we were playing, it had all crops around it, and so it was pretty isolated. And if you've ever been in Scotland, you know if you just hang around for 10 seconds, the weather's going to change. Yeah, you with me? And so I'm playing with Alex, and we're kicking the ball to each other, and he boots the ball, and it goes into the field next door. And I said, I'm not going to get it. You kicked it in there. And so off he goes, and as he's going across the field and over the fence to get the thing, the hailstones were coming down. It was like just like immediate like that. So there was these little dugouts. I think something as the manager sits in, and I ran and sat inside one of them. And Alex is still getting the ball. And as he turns round, Billy was gone. And the secret rapture, and I didn't know he was shouting because the hailstones were hitting on the roof. And I led him to the Lord on the center spot. So, Thief of the Night did one good thing. But here's the point. Matthew 24, verse 30, Jesus is very clear. Then, the arrival of the Son of Man, it will fill the skies. No one is going to miss it. Now, I believe that Jesus can come back, and I believe he's going to call us, but nobody's going to miss it. There's going to be no secret. Jesus came to a stable anonymous, but he's coming in the skies with his glory, and nobody's going to miss it. Chronologically, people look at the book of Revelation. I'm not going to labor this. And look at it. It's all, Jesus comes back in chapter 5, and then everything that happens from then on doesn't really affect us until we get to heaven. If you want some information to have a look at, I can send you some information and things to look at outside this. But just to say, and I'll give you a little bit of a homework, I really don't see the book of Revelation is a chronological book, all following on from each other. It's a very strange book, lots of pictorial language. And I believe that what Revelation is doing is it is showing us the period from Jesus arriving first to Jesus arriving again. And it's describing that time and over again. So if you were to describe yesterday, if I said, yesterday I went to Leamington to watch them play football, you would say you did something else, yes? And somebody else would say this, and so Revelation is showing the period from Jesus coming first to Jesus coming again, and it does it 7 or 8 times from the view of heaven, from the view of earth, from the view of his people. You with me? If you want to do a little exercise, I'm going to read a bit of chapter 24 now. Get that on your Bible and get another Bible out. Sorry if this is all a bit technical for you. And look at Revelation, what is it again? Revelation 6. You know when all the horses are going? All the jockeys are coming out? Compare the horses and what they're doing to the passage I'm now reading out. Okay? So Revelation, I'm not going to mention that again. We need to move on with what I'm trying to say. So, Jesus said, watch out for doomsday deceivers. Many leaders are going to come and show up with false identities, claiming, I am the Christ, the Messiah. They will deceive a lot of people. When reports come in of wars and rumors of wars, keep your head and don't panic. This is routine history. This is no sign of the end. Nation will fight against nation and ruler fight against ruler. And we know that at the moment, yes? Over and over they'll do it. Famines and earthquakes will occur in various places. This is nothing compared to what is coming. They are going to throw you to the wolves and kill you, everyone hating you because you carry my name. And then, going from bad to worse, it will be dog eat dog, everyone at each other's throat, everyone hating each other. I think that seems to happen more and more nowadays, especially on Facebook. In the confusion, lying preachers will come forward and deceive lots of people. For many others, the overwhelming spread of evil will do them in. Nothing left of their love but a mound of ashes. Staying with it. That's what God requires. Stay with it until the end. You won't be sorry and you'll be saved. All during this time. The period of time from Jesus coming till him come back again. All during this time, the good news, the message of the kingdom will be preached all over the world. A witness staked out in every country, and then the end will come. When we are living in the anticipation of eternity, don't look for signs. Share the gospel. Okay? Stop looking for signs. Share the gospel. Why is that a wise thing not to look for signs? Listen. But the exact, verse 36 of 24, but the exact day and hour, no one knows that, not even heaven's angels. God hasn't even told the angels when he's coming. Not even, this is a bizarre, not even the Son. Only the Father knows. You know, Jesus' teaching on the second coming focuses much more on how his followers should live whilst waiting rather than when he's coming. Yes? And I think that's why we've got to put the second coming of Jesus back into what we teach. Because we've got to live in that anticipation. And I feel like sometimes in the church we've taken that away. You with me? Jesus' teaching of the second coming focuses far more on how we live. at the end of chapter 24, he tells you 2 or 3 small parables, but then in 25, he carries on the teaching with 3 distinct, slightly longer stories or parables that he uses. And then for my time that I've got left, which is 5 minutes, oh dear, he tells 3 stories. Firstly, silly virgins. And back in those days, a couple would be betrothed before they got married. And betrothal and marriage could be years apart. And while they were waiting to be married, the bride would still live with the father. But when the marriage day came and the feast came, then the groom would go to the father's house, have a meal, and then they would be led back to the groom's house by torchlight in the evening by handmaids and women and friends of the bride. And this is the story that Jesus is sort of saying. He's saying that these ladies, whose job it was to keep their lamps ready, were caught off guard because, one, they fell asleep, and it's not a problem falling asleep, because they all fell asleep. The wise virgins and the not wise virgins, they both fell asleep, yes? The problem was the foolish ones had one job to do, and they didn't do it. It's like the best man job is to take the ring, yes? Or get the groom there, or whatever. But they don't do, oh, I didn't do that, I'm sorry. And these ladies had one job to do: lamps and oil. And if you don't have both, you don't get light, yes? And they didn't have, it wasn't like they run out of oil, they just didn't have it. Like, you got one job to do, one thing to do, and they didn't do it. And Jesus says to his disciples on the back of that, he says, "Watch therefore, for you know neither the day or the hour." That word he uses there, watch, it means to be awake, to be on guard. It's used 23 times in the New Testament and nearly always in connection with his coming. And Luke 12:35 says, "Stay dressed for action and keep your lamps burning." That the King James puts it a slightly different way. It says, "Gird up your loins." That's an expressive phrase in it. Gird up your loins. And it's because in those days, the men and the women, they used to wear these long garments. And if they wanted to go and run somewhere, they used to pull them up and stick it into their belt, and they were often running down the road. They were ready for action. They weren't sleeping, they were ready. The lamps were ready to go on, and we need to live our lives. And Jesus is saying don't worry about when I'm coming, just be ready for it. Be ready, stay dressed. So the first thing is, don't look for signs, but preach the gospel. Second thing is to be prepared and alert and ready for his coming. Then he goes on and talks about talents. One guy gets 5, and one gets 2, and one gets 1. Yes, you've read that one before. And he goes away, and when he comes back, they have like 5 has become 10, and 2 has become 4. You remember that? Yeah. Read it later on. I haven't got the time now. You know, I've always felt sorry for the guy that got 1. Because, like, I've always felt like I've had one, like, I only wanted one talent, and that was the ability to play football. And God just patently didn't give me it. And so I've always felt sorry. It's only me. I've always felt sorry. But I read this week that a talent was worth 6,000 denarii. And a day's wage was how much? 1 denarii. So even the one talent guy got 6,000 days' wages. Wouldn't that be great if that appeared in your pay packet this week? 20 years pay packets all at once. So even on minimum wage in our current society today, he got 450 grand in his account. And he hid it. What can you do with 450 grand? And God's saying, I've given you so much. Use it. Don't hide it. I've given you time and talent and treasure. Use it. You know, I've got 20 seconds and I'm nowhere near finished. Here we go. Listen. I'm going to say this with as lovingly as I can. The last few weeks, we've been doing a thing called Be Rich. And we've looked at how rich we really are as individuals. And we challenged everybody to give £10. And I know £10 will be more for some people than other people, yes. I understand that. But we wanted a picture of a place where maybe somewhere we could do it. And even the kids did stuff next door. And we saw a figure on the screen last week, 7,500 people. And I was like ecstatic. Because I'm thinking, the church gets it. 7,500 is 750 people. And we probably had online last week about 950 people, or whatever it was a few weeks back. Take off the kids, you're down to about maybe 750 adults and young people. And so I'm thinking, we've all given. Everybody's in this. And then I saw a figure that, in a way, disappointed me, because that £7,500 was actually given by 250 people, because some people gave more because maybe they could afford to do that. Yes, I don't want to, I'm just saying we've been given so much, yes, and sometimes we don't always realize how much we've been given in our society. We've got, and even if you take away that, each of us have got 168 hours in the week, yes? Doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, you've all got 168 hours in the week. How about taking some of those hours and using them to serve the people in our community? I want to encourage you to come on the 29th of March. Go to mkcc.org.uk/sign up. Take your kids with you. Do whatever you need to do. But come and find out about some of the things that happen in our community. Trying to wrap it up, because the third one I haven't got to yet. And it's about the sheep and the goats. And the difference between the sheep and the goats at the judgment seat of Christ is what they did and didn't do. Feeding, looking after the lonely, meeting people in prison. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't believe in salvation by works, completely opposite. But what I do know is that works follow salvation. James, the brother of Jesus, puts it like this. Let me find it, sorry. It's about 2 or 3 pages. Faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. And then the message in the next verse. I can already hear one of you agreeing by saying, sounds good. You take care of the faith department, I'll handle the works department. Not so fast. You can no more show me your works apart from your faith than I can show you my faith apart from my works. Faith and works, works and faith fit together like a hand and glove. Amen? In the light of eternity. And remember, eternity can come 2 ways, yes? Jesus could come back today, but also I might go and meet him, because I might walk out and walk under a bus, yes? It can come in various ways. Just as, everybody in the cricketing world has been talking about how incredibly crazy, surprising that Shane Warne, 52, had a heart attack and died, and everybody's talking about it. There's these ways that we can meet Jesus. So in the light of eternity, or the anticipation of eternity, we need to share the gospel. We need to stand prepared and alert. We need to steward the Master's treasure. We need to show love and compassion, because our faith gives works. Let's live every day in anticipation of eternity. Amen. Thank you, John.